driving in the night as the full moon rises through a strange forest on a lonely road. At the signpost ahead, you have come to your final destination. Welcome to Greenwater Nightz with Sam Ritchie. Now, here's your host, Sam Ritchie.
Hello, my name is Sam Ritchie, and you're listening to Greenwater Nightz, broadcasting deep within the recesses of the Cascade Mountains, where normal and bizarre blend together, and what is taught as fiction and where myth now becomes reality. Welcome to the world I live in, along with my friends, where the Bigfoot and little people are real, where ETs and UFOs abound, where strange lights and orbs appear, and yes, even portals opening up to reveal other worlds. An area not for the faint of heart, but for those seeking the truth, and in the process making astonishing discoveries about ourselves. In the next segment of our show, I'm going to have an interview with a very close friend of mine, Anita Hlebichuk. She has been very psychically prone for a long time, and only recently, since we've been associating with each other, it has led to confirmation of each of our individual abilities in this area. And some of the strange things that have happened to us, paranormal-wise, Bigfoot-wise, you don't want to miss that interview. However, in this first segment, I'm going to talk about something that I think most people might find hard to accept. And if you're a logical person who needs physical proof for everything, it might be even harder. However, the question comes down to this. Does the universe talk to us? What exactly do I mean by that? Do things appear in your life that seem repetitious or coincidental too many times? We know about the laws of probability. I could take a quarter out and flip it, and there's some predictability about the number of times that the quarter will end up on the heads or quarter will end up on the tails. And most people accept that. However, what would you think if in the course of your day you start experiencing things that defy the laws of probability, that defy the odds? Things would happen in such a way that it couldn't be chalked up merely to coincidence. I'm going to talk about that a little bit in my own personal case and some of the things that have happened to me. I alluded to my own personal awakening back in 2008, around that time period, where I went through some really serious trauma, personal trauma in my life, and ultimately led to the death of my spouse, who had a terminal cancer after about 3 years. And there were other factors, personal turmoil and some other issues that came up, and the pressure of it, and some anxiety issues, and a whole bunch of things rolled up into that. But out of that came my questioning of everything around me, because life wasn't what I thought it would be, even after 50 some odd years of living. It was kind of strange, because I started out with being in a particular religion for many, many years, and had an awakening of sorts that, well, after all those years, I don't think I had the truth of what I was looking for, at least. And so I started my search along those lines, along the religious lines, trying to find the right religion, I suppose. However, I was led to a couple of places. I won't go into the details too much about that. One of the things that happened during that time period was I started seeing things, chalk it up to signs or whatever the case may be, but it boiled down to numbers. For instance, seeing the repetition of certain number sequences. In the beginning, I don't know if this was influenced by my belief system, which was Christian. I started seeing the number 666 everywhere. Now, many people are going to say, "Oh, Lord, you're seeing 666 because you're a wayward person and you stepped away from your religious roots." You know, of course, they associate that with the devil. I know that. But I was seeing that number a lot, and it was just crazy where I was seeing it. house numbers, it would disappear. I'd see it on license plates. You know, sometimes I wish I'd kept a logbook of all the places where I actually saw that number. And it was all over the place. That was seen to be the number, at least for the first year or two, that I kept seeing everywhere. But it also coincided with the fact that I was still hanging on to some old religious beliefs. And when I changed my religious beliefs, when I kind of came to a realization that I had to look elsewhere for my awakening, then all of a sudden the numbers started changing on what I was seeing. I started seeing 4s. Yes, I started seeing 44. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and look at the clock. It was 4:44. I started seeing license plates that had 4:44 on it. And I wish I kept a logbook for that too, because it was just the unbelievable frequency that I'd actually see it. In temperature, 44. I would leave to go to the restaurant in the morning. I would leave the house and I'd look at the clock at the car, and it'd be some hour, like say 7:44. I'd be taken off to a 15-mile trip or whatever. I'd make some runs around whatever the case may be. I'd go to a particular place. It always was 44 past the hour. I'd always arrive back in town 44 past the hour. And not on purpose by any means. And the crazy thing about this, I'd even look down at the clock. I'd go drive an entire, 25, 30, 35 minutes. I just so happened to only look at the clock the one time and be 44 past the hour. I mean, it was just nuts. And the thing is, the clock, where I was seeing this on the car, for instance, it didn't correlate to the actual time that it was, because the clock just happened to be about 12 minutes slow from the actual time it should have been. So it had nothing to do with the actual time. It was something about the perception of the time showing up all the time like that. So one of the things that was really weird about this was it was driving me crazy. The numbers I would see, it was just unbelievable where it was showing up. I mean, I'm trying to recount right now without having to do the recording of the show, because it's really important, and people are going to say, well, why are you bringing this up? This is about Greenwater Nightz. It's about Bigfoot. It's about little people. It's about all the things you're experiencing up here. What do numbers have to do with the show? It has everything in the world to do with the show, because these numbers that I've been seeing is the way the universe is talking to us, those that have become awake. I had a case one time where I alluded to the fact it was driving me nuts to see these numbers. So I wanted to chill out one day. We have a local canoe race that takes place in August of every year. So I remember the case of going up in my car. I think I rode with someone else that didn't have a clock in the car. So I got out, and it was just so odd because I went into a friend's son. As I walk up to him, a lady comes up to him as well and asks him, "Oh, do you know what time it is? Can you show me your watch?" So he shows his watch to her, and then she says, "Oh, that's strange. It's 11:44. The last time I asked you, it was 10:44. I was floored. There's another experience that comes to mind. My background is IT, and I must have written 250,000 lines of code in my career. Sometimes when we write software, it's for the purpose of doing batch processing, or we run through a list of files, doing some processing on individual records. So a lot of times what we'll do is actually have some kind of feedback on the screen, and at the time it was green screens that we're using. I'd normally either put an asterisk for each record that was processed, so I'd know that the program was still running. However, in this particular instance, I decided to just go ahead and put the number of the record that was being processed and have it just printed out on the screen, and It would just run through a series of numbers. At least with that method, I know where I'm at on the processing scale. So once I was running a process on a large number of records. So it'd be flying by on all these numbers, and then it would stop on record number 444 and sit there for a long time. Just so happened it hit the record that had the most data in it that required processing. So should I chalk that up merely to coincidence as well? That the 444th record just so happened to be large enough to require additional processing? Personally, I think not. But it wasn't just 444 I was seeing. I started seeing the other numbers too, and the thing is that I'd go into town where I live, the city, in Tacoma. I stop in the parking lot, and I'm getting out, and there's 3 cars. I'm looking at their license plates because, they have additional numbers on it, but 3 cars in a row. The first one's 222, the next one 333, the next one after that is 444. You want to talk about the odds, the laws of probability of something like that happening? Well, it was happening too frequently. I would see the 444 or 44 past the hour or whatever at least 6 or 7 times a day. I mean, it was so important to me that I had to at least document these experiences in the book I wrote back in 2016. Here's another example from my book where I experienced 444 every day. I was driving to town that morning, which was in February 2016. I just happened to look down at my odometer and saw the number 444. So I pulled over in order to take a picture of it with my cell phone. Don't know why I did that. But it wasn't until later that I transferred the photo to my computer that I noticed the cell phone, guess what, also assigned a file name with the number 444 embedded in it. The file name is usually a date and time stamp. In this case of this particular photo, it was taken on 2/9/2016 at 9:14 and 44 seconds in the morning. And I wasn't even looking at the time when this was taking place. You want to call that a coincidence? Unbelievable. The next thing I was trying to figure out is, what do these numbers mean? In the case of 44 or 444, you can actually go on Google and look up angel numbers or what these numbers signify. And they all have particular meanings, what these numbers can signify. A lot of cases, 444 has to do with angels are with you, for instance, or that your guides are with you, or something along those lines. But I take it as a beacon of something that I was doing with my life the universe was pleased with, and that's why I was seeing the numbers all the time. So whatever direction I was taking in my life, I was obviously doing the right thing. Because I have a feeling that if I wasn't going down the path I was going, these numbers would not show up anymore. As time went on, other numbers started appearing. The 1111, the typical 1111 symbol came up a lot, usually associated with angels. And especially so in the last few years with the activity we've had out in the woods and all the things we've learned about the Bigfoots and the other information that I've been gleaning. It has gotten even stronger. It almost is as if the universe is saying, well done, you're on the right path, good job, keep going. I would like to backtrack a little bit at this point, since we're talking about numbers and how the universe uses it to communicate with us, with an incident that happened some years back in 2012. I just happened to be hanging out with a friend at Ocean Shores, that's usually along the Washington coastline, and she was associated with one of the Indian tribes, so she was considered a medicine woman. But while we were driving on the main highway just north of there, she said that there was a visitor with us in the car at that point. Now, there was no one else in the car other than me who was driving, and she was in the front seat with me. But she's a rather psychic person. Proceeded to describe who this person was in the back seat, this invisible person, and what they were wearing. And based on the description, before long I knew that who she was describing was my deceased spouse, who had passed away from cancer just a couple of years before that. So my friend relayed what the spirit entity was saying to her about myself, things that only my spouse would have known. I tried to be very logical about this. I was still hanging on to some of my religious ideas at the time, back then, and trying to be very logical about it. There was no way that my friend could have known about that information, though. So I was still, like I said, I was still influenced by my previous religious indoctrination, and I expressed my doubts and said that perhaps it was demonic in nature and that maybe we were being fooled by them. However, we went ahead and pulled into the nearby beach front, and I said, well, I need more proof that this is coming from Toby, or my spouse, that is trying to contact us. Well, just at that point, when I said that, I just happened to be looking through the windshield up at the sky, and I saw what appeared to be two sets of numbers in the sky. I immediately grabbed my cell phone and took the picture, and I have since published it in my book, but the numbers were clearly seen to me as 22 and 13. Well, I wanted to know what that meant. So I did a Google search for 22 and a 13, and the very first thing that came up was a reference to, a biblical reference at that, to Revelation 22:13. So I looked it up, and the scripture says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. I'm telling you what, when I read that, I had the shivers up my spine, because I knew at that point I was being communicated back that what I was experiencing was real, and it was not of a demonic nature. I'm not saying that God talked to me directly. However, I consider good spiritual forces were at play here, and actually let me know that who was probably in the car with us was probably my spouse, the spirit of my spouse, that is. I'll tell you what, those are one of those events that really changed me over time and aided in my ever-increasing awakening to the truth. And what's odd is once you're the one that's receiving these numbers all the time, sometimes it's infectious. I once had a project manager I worked with, and I was telling him, I'm starting to see these numbers now. I'm starting to see this 44 or 44 show up in all these weird places. And I told him a number of times about it, and then it just didn't seem like it was very much longer past that. He came to me and says, you know what? I'm starting to see these numbers too. So I don't know why it happens that way, but whatever was affecting me or allowing me to see these numbers, maybe it was a part of the awakening. Maybe it's when we start telling other people about it, about this information, that it's like planting the seed in them, and then these numbers start to communicate with them as well. So I actually believe that this is one way that the universe talks to us. But when you're talking about the paranormal, I'm thinking in terms of spirits or interdimensional beings that are somehow manipulating our physical reality. But it's not with just numbers that they're trying to communicate with us, I believe. They use other signs or other ways that draws our attention to something that's a little bit out of the ordinary. I know with the passing of my spouse, Toby, about 9 years ago, there were certain things that are associated with our previous life together that seemed to crop up every so often. Not too long after Toby passed away, I'd go in a drugstore and I'd hear music playing, and it was just regular old rock music or something or another. It was the kind of music I didn't particularly listen to. And then the minute I walk in, the song would abruptly stop, And the next thing you know, I'd be hearing the song that I actually love to hear all the time, and only Toby would know about that. And that happened a few other times. We used to do karaoke together in the restaurant he once owned, and I kept hearing the same songs that we always used to love to sing together. And it was an abnormal amount of times that I would actually hear something like that. So I guess the bottom line is that there is communication going on via numbers or via signs, via music, or strange things that happen that defy the odds, and they're coming from the other side. So it's important to realize that because we have been raised to think in terms of the physical universe, the physical being, and sometimes when people start talking about spiritual stuff, that it's this hocus-pocus, fluffy stuff that has no real bearing on the real world. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Science is just now revealing many of the mysteries that are coming from the quantum physics realm of strange properties and behaviors of particles that defy what we are normally taught in physics. One of the strangest properties has to do with quantum entanglement, where two particles are separated by any amount of distance, and when one particle behaves a certain way, it is replicated in the other particle despite the distances between that, sometimes beyond the speed of light. So that does not have a bearing on the behavior of both particles interacting with each other. They could be separated by hundreds of millions of light years away and still be able to act the same way despite the distance that they're separated. Then there's a strange behavior exhibited by what they call the double slit experiment, where they shoot a series of focused light beams through two different slits and measure the patterns that are resulting from that. And what's strange about it is sometimes those beams of light, depending on circumstances, would show up as a wave pattern, whereas other times it would end up as a particle pattern. And the difference was whether it was being observed or not. Well, what difference would that make if something's being observed? That's really strange if you think about it. So the reality of the situation may be that what we perceive as our reality, our universe, our physical universe, may simply be a symptom or the result of an underlying dimension with its own set of physics and everything, its own set of rules that govern how this universe actually works. So all the things that happen with numbers, with signs and symbols, and things just seem to automatically crop up at the right time, at the right place, may actually be controlled by this underlying dimension. Even what we perceive as time may possibly be manipulated by this other dimension. We often think as humans about a beginning and an end, especially with regards to our lives, and we also struggle with the concept that perhaps the universe in its entirety had no beginning, or possibly has no end. We're influenced greatly by coming in this world under such great limitations of perception. We perceive a start, we perceive a finish, and that's all we seem to be limited to, and that's all we can grasp or understand. We have a hard time with the concept of eternity when it comes to no beginning. We can sometimes see the no end part. If you think about it realistically, when you look at the material universe, for instance, well, some people talk about the Big Bang Theory or other things, but if you think about it, something had to exist all the time. That's just the bottom line. Something didn't come from nothing. So there had to be, at least, in the very least, a ball of energy or some kind of energy that spawned all this. And it doesn't matter if it's the physical universe or some other dimensions or spiritual beings or other physical entities or other dimensions. It all had to come from somewhere. And that somewhere had to have been here all along. Now, many people may refer to this as God, Others may refer this as the source of all energy, or the source. It's the beginning of all things, where everything spawned from it. So I was talking about particle entanglement, and how particles seem to, when they're related to each other, they instantly respond to each other. Well, if you think about it, if there was only one source that spawned everything, that means at some basic level, everything is interconnected with each other through this particle entanglement. That means that there's an instant response from the source to everything that exists, so that all things are connected. Hence, probably why we think about consciousness. And if that's the case, perhaps the universe itself is completely conscious. So going back on what I mentioned at the beginning of this program about the signs, the numbers, and all the weird things that were happening despite the laws of probability or the odds, that perhaps there's intelligence in the universe that's behind all this. And it's this singular source or other intelligences that are part of this universal consciousness that are drawing our attention to these things, such as the signs and symbols and the numbers. And if that's the case, then they're trying to convey a message to us. And as I alluded before, in my own personal case, I saw these numbers as a personal sign for myself that I was on the right path. And since then, the numbers have guided me towards certain sources of information, to other things that have assisted me in the path that I'm taking as part of my own awakening. Well, we now come to the end of this segment of the program. In the following hour, we're going to have an interview with Anita Hlebichuk about her experiences and about how I met her and some of the things that we've actually encountered that you'll find absolutely amazing. So stick around. We're going to go ahead and have a station break. You're listening to Greenwater Nightz. I'm your host, Sam Ritchie, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. My name is Sam Ritchie, and you're listening to Greenwater Nightz. And we're sitting here with our guest this evening, Anita Hlebichuk.
Hello.
Anita has been a friend of mine for the last, going on four years now. And we met at a meeting, a Bigfoot meeting, that I was actually taking care of.
I had just moved back home from Idaho, moved back here to Washington, and was surprised I had found people that were interested in Sasquatch and kind of a little bit over the top stuff, but it was in the same city I was in. So yeah, when I first showed up, I didn't know anybody personally, other than just talking to a couple people online to see where it was and that kind of thing.
And they told you about the meetings, I guess.
Yeah, they told me about the meetings.
And that's how you came in contact with Dr. J as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool. And we know that there's a huge story of experiences that you experienced after we met, and a lot of them were while I was with you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and we're going to get into maybe some of those. I could already tell you, based on the number of experiences, you're going to probably have to have you on shows. 2 or 3 shows.
Yeah. Too much to talk about all in one.
You were a firm believer in the cryptids, like Bigfoots and all that, well beyond.
Oh, yeah, for quite a while before I ever found other people that were.
Right. So what I want to do is delve back into your past now, and I want you to kind of talk about your life a little bit and how you felt you were so normal with everyone else.
Well, when I was really, really young, I had, this is like maybe 4 or so, 3 or 4, when you start, realizing things around you, but I was sensing different things and seeing some different things that I just, at the time, I just thought, okay, this is, you're learning, you're a little kid. Well, and as I got a little bit older, and I remember a couple times I'd asked my mom about some things, and she had brought up that my great-great-grandmother was a shaman back in Ukraine. This is when I was a little bit older and was starting to ask questions. But I didn't even know what the word shaman meant. I had no idea what she was talking about. So she explained medicine woman and kind of some of the stuff she did, and I just kind of went one ear and out the other because it didn't make sense to me then. And like I said, when I was little, I thought, okay, everybody's like this. This is just, you're growing up learning about the world around you. Well, as you start getting into grade school and you're around other little kids, you realize it's not normal. People don't all see that stuff and sense things. So then I wanted to be normal, like, you want to fit in. So I would just not talk about it or pretend it wasn't there and just kind of stuff it for a while. And so, as you get older, you still want to share. And anytime I did share a little bit, I was made fun of, or people just didn't want to be around me, like I scared them or something. So then I'd stuff it again for years.
So they thought you were basically making this up in your mind, that you were crazy.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to share these things you were actually experiencing. Was part of you saying to yourself, I don't understand what nobody else is experiencing or know?
Oh, yeah, you do, and then you start to question your own, maybe, is there something wrong with
sanity,
me?
Right?
Is there something wrong with me? And that you don't want anything to be wrong with you. You want to fit in with everybody else. You want to have friends and that kind of thing.
Well, it is very disturbing, and that went on through your childhood as well?
Yeah, off and on through, I would just stuff it for years and try and...
You're trying to be a conformist, so you're trying to just fit in with everybody.
But that didn't mean it quit happening, or I'd quit seeing things, or sometimes I'd know stuff before it happened, and it would happen, and I mean in detail, not just, I think this is going to happen, it would be details of things.
But you just kept this to yourself. You didn't try to share it with anybody.
I don't want people, the worst thing was feeling that I scared somebody. That made me feel awful. Because I'm not a scary person.
No, you're not. I can attest to that. I've known you for a while.
For people being afraid of you, that just made me, feel really crappy.
Right.
And so then,
go ahead.
Then I got a little older, and I want to say junior high, high schoolish age. Again, I would try and share things, and again, it would scare people. They think I was weird, and so I would kind of stuff it for a while. And at that time, I had also thought, well, okay, you're going to sense things. This is when I was little. I'll back up a little bit. When I was little, I realized if I'm going to see things, you can't just pick and choose. It's not always going to be good things, because you're going to see everything. Like when you look outside, you don't just see just the grass and nothing else around it. You're going to see everything. So I knew I'm going to see good stuff, and I'm going to see stuff that's not so good. And the not so good stuff scared me. So part of the time when I would start feeling something or start sensing something, I would purposely distract myself from it because I didn't want to see anything that was not good. Because I was scared. I didn't know if I could handle it. You're just kind of, if you don't know about it, it scares you more. And so it wasn't until I was older that I finally decided, I'm not going to be afraid. Bring it on. If I'm going to see it, I'm going to see it, And so then I would quit distracting myself from seeing things, or quit sensing things.
What you thought was a problem, I call a gift.
Oh yeah, now I love it. I wouldn't want to change who I am for the world.
Right. So whereas most people have and I'm thinking about the pineal gland, for instance, it's kind of closed off, and if people want to understand what that's about, they can do a little bit of research on it. But it does open worlds up that you didn't know existed before, and widens your perception.
Oh yeah.
To other things that are around us that are normally invisible to most people. So you're going into your adult years at this point, and I'm trying to think, is there anything else during your adult years? Did you kind of keep this to yourself during that whole time period? Or?
A lot of times, yeah, because I just didn't. Sometimes I would just kind of bring up general subjects or mention certain astral travel or the world chakra or just certain words just to see how
people react to it?
Just that word.
You're testing them.
Yeah, and so if they didn't even have a good reaction to that word, there was no way I was going to bring up anything. Even if it's something I saw about them or knew that was going to happen, and it's not like I'd see bad things happening about people. Yeah. But still, I wasn't going to, bring it up if they had a bad reaction or a kind of weird reaction to.
Then you wouldn't go any further.
Yeah,
You'd
I'd
just
be like,
leave it alone
and change the subject.
Right.
Yeah, so I was like, and so I didn't really have anybody for a long time that I felt I could even share things with that would, without me having to explain things.
And that probably made you feel, very different.
Yeah, makes you kind of feel isolated.
Well, I can understand the feeling a little bit, perhaps feeling introverted at that point, because you're not the life of the party anymore. You can't play their game. They have a whole other world in their own limited world, and you have this more expanded universe around you. And you're trying to fit in, and it's just not working out.
Yeah, it's a square peg trying to fit in a round hole. It just
right.
Yeah.
So, can you describe perhaps some of the things that you were sensing around you, or what you're able to, some of your abilities of what you've been able to see as you were growing up?
Sure. One big thing that I sense in people, I physically see it or sense it or a combination of both, is, and it's not your aura, how that's colored and around you. This comes from way deep inside of somebody, past the point of being male or female or anything like that. It's like their true base essence.
True essence.
Their true essence, their energy. Mm-hmm. To me, it comes across like it's colored. It's almost like everything's color coded. That sounds funny, but but everything it's color coded, and it's not like I see it on every single person that's running around. It's, for some reason, I connect to certain people or certain individuals. If I am concentrating on and I want to see something, I can. But just running around in general, it's not like I see the whole public and it's a bouncing bunch of colors, that type of thing. But when I do see it, it's very unique to each person. Like, I could see two different people that, say, have the color blue, but person A's blue could mean something totally different than person B's blue, even though they could be the same blue.
Right.
They have a vibration to them. They have a character to them. Yeah, it's all very, very, very unique to them.
Aside from if you saw someone with the same color but they're different, is it also the pattern of the color?
Oh yeah, it has
everything has a vibrational pattern.
Yeah, some might move a little different or faster than others, or in a different direction, or they might have little like sparkles zinging off of the color, and it's usually just one or two at the most for the general people I see. I've seen a few with three. Now I've seen, which could be a totally different subject, we'd be talking for a long time on this one, but I had always seen myself as it's a specific multitude of colors. And I say a rainbow, but that's not like what you see on the Lucky Charms box, red, orange, yellow, green, not that kind of a cartoony rainbow. It's just so many different colors. And I had only ever seen myself like that. And I thought, okay, that just happens to be mine. Well, and I'll go back to when I first came to the meetings. That first day, not knowing anybody, I was, aside from sensing different energies of people, and I couldn't necessarily figure out whose energy was who, so that was a little distracting. But I saw in you and in one other person the same color in me. And that got my attention right away. I was like, who are these people? Why do they have the same color as me? I've never seen that in anybody but me.
So what kind of colors did you see?
It's a multitude. There's red. I mean, there's the colors like in the rainbow, the red, blue.
I mean, specifically with myself and that other individual, and the same.
It's the same multitude of colors in the same.
More like a rainbow?
Order. It's more like a rainbow, almost like what you see. Like when you're taking a picture, and sometimes if you're too close to the sun or something, and you get that.
Oh, like a lens flare.
A lens flare of all different colors.
Right.
And between the three of us, it's the same type of colors, but like mine has little things, like I said, the little sparkles zinging off of it, and yours is more stable and kind of has a specific movement to it, and the other person's has green as the main color, but it still has its own little vibration, but they're the exact.
They're similar, but also it's almost like...
they still have their uniqueness to them. Yeah. And so that's the main thing that I seem to see in different people is the colors and knowing what's inside of them, and it just by the color and by what it's doing, it's like I know who they are. Okay, so with the colors, like energy doesn't lie, and it just doesn't. You can pretend to be a certain way, but that color shines no matter what you're trying to be.
Which I find amazing because you've been seeing colors around people all your life, right?
Yes, yeah.
But you never saw the colors. You were able to know what your colors were.
Yeah, I can tell what mine are, yeah.
And you never found anybody with a close match
Not
to that.
in 50, yeah, I'm 50, going to be 58 in January. And
right, you don't look 50.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Yeah, I kind of like that.
But anyway.
So yeah, I was really startled to see that in you two. That I didn't know why, I didn't know, because like I said, in 50-some years, I've never seen that in anybody else but me. So I was excited. At one time, I kind of scared. It's like, I don't know these people. I can't just run up and say, hey, do you know, without explaining all that. They'd think I was nuts.
So it's unusual to come to this meeting and all of a sudden you're seeing the same thing, like pattern match.
Yeah.
Like they're closely related in a lot of ways. It says, why is there two other people at this meeting? First of all, it's unusual to see one other person you never saw before that had your colors, but then you're seeing two people.
Yeah, it was...
Well, and obviously it had something to do with destiny because we became great friends.
Oh, yeah. The stuff we've
experienced from that. So, typically with average people, what kind of colors do you see around them normally? I mean, kind of
blues or greens.
Usually one color.
Yeah, it's usually, I don't see, if I see like a dark brown or going towards a black, I just tend to stay away. That just shows me to stay away from that person.
Right.
I mean, I'm not trying to make a judgment call, but to me that shows me there's something off, or there's something that they're going through, or there's something that's influencing them, or I don't try and figure out what it is. I just stay away.
So I remember you coming to the meetings we did it once a month in South Hill area. You came to quite a number of meetings, and we talked a little bit, and I remember we had an outing afterwards, went to a different restaurant, and talked a little bit, but I think at some point you wanted to come out to our area because you were hearing about...
Oh, yeah, I had heard a lot of stuff about the Greenwater area.
Right, and I was doing the presentations probably more than half the times talking about all the weird experiences and all the things that were going on out there. So you wanted to kind of experience that, and you came out there yourself, and that's how we got to know each other.
You kind of gave me a little tour of different areas.
And we went to what we call the field area. We did a lot of things ourselves and checking out different areas, and I showed you one other area called the Fortress.
Yeah.
You were kind of cool because you're kind of like a psychic barometer of what was going on out there.
The energy, yeah.
And I have some psychic abilities, but you're obviously more advanced in your abilities or sensitivity. So I wanted you to kind of sense certain areas, like the field area I described in my other episode, where I had all these experiences. What did your sense tell you about that particular area? What characteristics?
That one I felt a lot of curiosity was one. Very open, very friendly. It felt like it was home to whoever the entities are that are out there, and it's been home for a long time to them.
It kind of, I always call it like the interdimensional gateway and things, because we've had some others.
Yeah, it's definitely a special place. Yeah.
But yet, when we go to this other area, it was about 6 or 7 miles away, called the Fortress. And we hung out there. There was something sacred.
The first time I was there, I felt like this was a very, very sacred area for some reason. Something either had happened in the past that was and still had a sacredness, or was still continuing now. And I look back now and I kind of laugh because for a long time, I didn't even know if I could tell you what I was feeling, because there was still that part of me was afraid. It's like, okay, yes, these people seem to be more accepting of this type of thing. But still, if I say something, are they gonna, think I'm nuts? And then, okay, there I go again. I got to find different people,
So you're afraid of losing your new friends?
Yeah, I was. I was like, oh my gosh.
So you were hesitating.
So it took probably a good, like the Fortress area, it was like the 4th or 5th time before I finally said, okay, Sam, wait a minute. I have to say something. This is, it's not, like the first time I thought, maybe it's just me being excited to be out here. And so, but then the next time I'd feel the exact same thing in the exact same areas, and again, and it was finally like, I have to say something. Yeah, we've had a lot of experiences there. there's from the field area, there's a certain spot where we go sit on that log, and we've had a lot of cool things happen there, but one that I think was really, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, is we're sitting on the log, and I could see just across the trail, which we're right next to the trail. It's not like we're a long ways away from it.
Right.
You know, a few steps and you're on the trail. And I could see a sparkly area across the trail, but it was up high. It was like a band up high, kind of a bluish, little tiny sparkles, you know, and it almost looked like a mist, but it wasn't blowing around anywhere, which is stationary. And I had pointed it out, and then you went over there, and as soon as you got like just past halfway across that path, which again is only a few steps out and then a few steps more, I could only see you from the waist up. And it wasn't that there was no bushes in the way, there was no nothing, and all of a sudden, and then when you try to look at me sitting on the log, you could only see me from the waist up sitting on the log.
Oh, the mist, yes.
Yeah, that was...
That was an exciting... That was weird.
Yeah, that was...
A matter of fact, I'm going to interject on that a little bit,
sure.
Because it was the day before or the other day. I know that wasn't the same night. We went up there a couple of times. Well, what got me was going up on the logging road and looking up the road. And then you're saying, oh, there's some kind of mist coming. Remember?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one I could see. It was not totally on the ground, but it was low to the ground. I think maybe 12, 14 inches up off the ground, and it was just slowly coming down that logging road up kind of around the corner.
And you're telling me about that.
Yeah.
You're saying, since the mist has come out, says, I don't see any mist. So I learned something that day, and then I'm going to talk about that, what you were just referring to the very next day or so, was, okay, I can't see it. I'm trying to look ahead. And so someone told me, or I don't know, something in my head told me this, or I heard this before, look at the space in between the space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't look down the way, but look in between the air. And so I kind of focused my eyes and concentrated, and then all of a sudden I saw the mist. And I saw it coming toward us, and I saw it blowing past our heads and everything.
Mm-hmm. It just came up around. I could see it going up around over your shoulders.
Oh, I know that.
I was so excited when you saw it too. I was like, oh, good, that's just so
I
cool.
know. I was just blown away. It says, I learned something new. It's not a typical mist. I'm thinking it's some kind of energy.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't like fog. It wasn't...
And since then, of course, I use that technique to look up in the sky, and I can see all sorts of weird energetic patterns moving all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if someone saw that all the time, they'd go nuts. I think one of the things that keeps people's sanity is to filter out a lot of stuff, because they couldn't handle it all.
No, you can't try and understand all kinds of things coming at you at once.
But I think it's cool when you can control it, turn it on and off when you need it. So that happened. That was awesome. When you were sitting on the log, and you were pointing out you saw sparkles in the colors. Of course, I couldn't see that, but I was seeing this mist in the field area. What was weird about it was hanging there, but it had a ceiling on it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
it was up maybe about 6'5" or something.
Yeah.
You know, just a little bit taller than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I walked toward it, you said I disappeared.
You disappeared from the waist down.
And it wasn't no more than about 30 feet away.
It
wasn't pitch black outside.
No.
I mean, there was still enough light where I could see it. But then when I turned around and looked at you, you kind of disappeared too.
Yeah, it was really
strange. And then I reached up with my arms, and I stuck my hand up there. What did you see when I did that?
It was like you put your hand through water, and when you moved it, it looked like when you put your hand like through a stream or some water somewhere, you could see it going through, and then there was more sparkles coming off wherever you touched it.
Wow.
It was...
Yeah, I know.
So it had some substance to it. It was just amazing to watch. It was really cool.
Well, so I stood over there, and it says, you can't see me. I can hear you, but you can't see me at all. And so as I started walking toward you, describe as I slowly walked toward you what you started seeing me come in the view.
Well, when you were over there, I could sort of see you, but it wasn't clear. And definitely I couldn't, it was only from the waist up. And then as you came closer back towards where I was sitting, I'd say maybe a little bit, real close to halfway middle of the path. Mm-hmm. And it's not a real wide path, but then I could start, you were coming back into to where I could see you again. I could see all of you again.
I remember you saying that my pants changed color. I was wearing jeans, and you said you saw white, and then
it was. I don't know, and like I said, I'm no expert on that kind of stuff. I don't know what I was seeing or why I was seeing it, but I just know what I was seeing, and it was the whole thing was really amazing.
We've had several experiences right in the field.
Really cool stuff.
Especially at night. We'll just go up there. I'm never going to go up there by myself. I just believe there's safety in numbers.
Oh, yeah.
2 or more people, So that experience was just over the top for me about that mist. So there's something to that, And then we went back up there. Oh, I can't even document when this was. I know we went up there at one time. We're not talking about this one time Tom went up with us when we were playing that concert.
Yeah.
I actually interviewed him in the last episode. He initially talked about the experience. Where all 3 of us were up there and we're having this concert.
Oh yeah, we're just playing everything. We were having fun. Yeah.
Beating sticks, and then he's looking down and seeing these 2 lights in the creek. And that started a whole journey for him.
Oh, yeah.
It led into that amazing experience he had over at the Bumping Lake area.
And I was so tickled because his reaction was not instant fear and instant, oh, something's wrong, this is bad. He was like a little kid.
Yeah.
Which is the wonder, and what's like, wow, this, and that tickled me more just to see somebody that was that kind of a reaction to it. And I remember saying to him, we both said, well, don't be surprised now if other things happen to you, other experiences.
That's funny you mentioned that, because that's exactly what he said in this last interview.
Oh, cool.
You said that to him.
Yeah.
He even said that about me. He's just tickled pink that I was seeing that and showing him, and we were all like little kids again, experiencing things for the first time.
Yeah.
And honestly, in a lot of ways, we have. You've experienced a lot of things in your life. I kind of came from a background where I had no paranormal experiences at all, and this all started in the last 10 years. So a lot of ways, I'm kind of like the young kid that's just starting all over with everything. But I'm thinking about this one other time that we went up there, just the 2 of us. It was in the night. And sometimes we'll go up there before it gets dark, and then we'll just sit there until it gets completely dark. So one thing I remember, I don't know, we were kind of checking energy-wise, and you were trying to, we're just listening. A lot of times we'll just sit up there just to listen. We hear stick breaks, or a couple occasions, of course, when I was up there with Barb Shoot, we'd see all sorts of, the whole hill would light up.
Light up, yep.
With eye shine, just red,
like a light show,
white.
Yeah,
like a big Christmas trees all over. I don't remember a whole lot, but I remember it says, well, one of the policies we have is when we go up the trail, especially when we start, we never shine flashlight up in the trees or vertically. Always keep the light toward the ground, because we have determined that it's very disrespectful to the Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah.
To shine them out in the trees. I don't like it.
You wouldn't want somebody shining a flashlight in your eyes just to see if you were there.
Right. Same goes for infrared cameras and things, because they do put out kind of an infrared flashlight.
Yeah, and they can see that. They
can see that. Their vision range is a lot higher, so they go in the UV range and that's a whole different topic.
The whole
thing I researched about callers, about what animals see, what we see versus what the cryptids can actually see. I decided to take my camera, my nice Nikon. For some reason, I'm just going to take this camera and point it to the sky and take a picture. When I did that, it just flashed all. I remember it just flashed all over the place.
Oh, it lit up the place, yeah.
Yeah, I took a few more pictures like that, and I didn't realize what I was going to see on those pictures. I don't know if I saw it there or a little bit later, but then after we did that flash thing a couple of times, all of a sudden, remember that crashing sound?
Oh, behind us, yeah.
Oh, my God, that just kind of like scared the living, what?
And we were out of there in a flash.
We got out of there quick.
It's like, okay, it's time to leave now.
We don't know what it is. I mean, you're not going to sit there and think and assume that it's just one of our forest friends just doing that. We don't know if it's like some kind of bear or some kind of whatever, if you can't see it. But lo and behold, when I took the pictures back and took a look at them closely, it wasn't lens flare or anything like. There were orbs.
Oh yeah, that was a very cool picture.
And there were several orbs that we caught, and they were floating around the trees. And then one particular picture, I had where it looked like, it wasn't an orb, it was like a screen, remember that square one? Mm-hmm. So in my opinion, kind of like a doorway portal was above us in the tree.
Yeah.
So I felt that was just completely amazing. Now, we're going to go ahead and break right now, and then the next segment we'll continue this and talking about some more experiences that we had. You're listening to Greenwater Nightz. I'm your host, Sam Ritchie, and we'll be right back after the station break. Welcome back. I'm your host, Sam Ritchie, and you're listening to Greenwater Nightz. And we're continuing our discussion with our guest tonight, Anita Hlebichuk, talking about the experiences that we have shared together in the what we call the Field of Dreams area, research area, in Greenwater. And not to be ever specific about where that is, we try to keep that under the lid. Although I can say it's a public area, but no one would ever know
what's going on
what's really going on there unless they're the kind of receptive person that's actually going to,
sense it, when they come in there.
Even the other areas is highly camped, so, but I choose not to really say, it's right here on the GPS, like, here's the needle, just look on the map, here it is, no.
Yeah.
Because I really don't want a whole bunch of people going up there. And I'm going to have to say this, that just because we have these areas, it isn't the only place.
Oh, no,
all around the United States, all over the world, these places exist. And if you're hearing these experiences for the first time, go out in the woods.
Yeah, you don't have to be out in the middle of nowhere. And not to say that it can't be out there if you're way, way deep in the woods, but you don't have to be in a specific spot for things. Yes, there are specific spots, like the area that I talked about that's, has a sacredness to it. But if you take the time to quiet your mind, go in with an open heart and not specifically with your brain trying to analyze things or well, this tree's here, so it must be a really good spot. Just go and sit someplace and
meditate.
Just be yourself.
Be yourself.
Yeah, you could.
Of course, I call it meditate.
I have stuff happen in my backyard. It doesn't.
Oh yeah, there's you can go to a city park or something like that.
Yeah, which I do.
And maybe you're not going to see necessarily the big guy, but you might see the little guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a perception issue. I think that people close their minds off. That's part of the problem.
I think everybody has
the
abilities that I have innately in them, but for some reason the switches aren't on, or they've been blocked from the time you're little, just by things that you've grown up around, things that have influenced you, and, that kind of a thing. But I don't think I'm anybody, all that special. I'm not some weird guru or something. I just happen to have a lot of things that have stayed open.
Right. You were privileged enough to have these things open up at an early age, whereas most people... I think they all start out like that, but they go through a process of closing off, you know. And you often hear about young children talking to their imaginary friends. Mm-hmm. You're kind of wondering now that maybe they were really talking to someone after they're not so imaginary after all. You're disciplined or whatever, you're told not to do that anymore, and so they're basically brainwashing you into not believing this stuff anymore.
Yeah, and it gets closed off.
What you saw wasn't real. And then by the time you're an adult, it's all closed off. And it happened to me too. It closed off for a while. I had my aha moment, I call it a nervous breakdown, about 12 years ago. But the process opened my mind back up, and then I felt like a little kid again. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't go back for million years to the kind of life that I had before. I don't want to live in the mundane world. I want to live in the world that's so awe-inspiring with all the things that are going on around us that most people can't see because it's all real.
That was very real, yeah.
So what I want to do now is, we talked about being in that one research area. Let's talk about the other one I call the fortress area.
The fortress area, yeah.
And in our one incident where we walked down that one trail and you were sensing energy coming from a particular stump.
Yeah, I had, every time we had gone down there, there's like a wall of where this intense energy starts, and my whole body was just tingling. My nose, the tip of my nose, my fingers, my arms, and I was like, what is here? And I'm looking around, and I see trees, and there's a stump next to me, and I'm trying to figure out where it's coming from. And at that time, I didn't tell you because I'm like, I don't even know what it is to explain. And then as you walk further down, I can feel the wall of like where it ends. There's still an intense energy in that whole area and that sacredness, but there's this little wall of really, really intense energy that I just, tingly, zappy the whole time. And not painful or anything, but it just, you can't ignore it. And then we go again. The next time I'd be up there a few minutes later, and I'd feel it again and again. And then when I finally said, hey, Sam, take some pictures of this stump. This is the only thing I can figure that's the biggest thing in this little area, that there's got to be something with this stump. There has to be something with this stump.
It was emanating from the energy was coming from the stump.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can come up with, yeah.
Well, I did take the pictures, and I'm pretty good about interpreting, take a picture with a very high-resolution camera and actually blow it up.
Blow it up and you can see
on the
things.
Computer, and I can start seeing things. And, I understand about pixelation, about pareidolia and all that. There's a whole range of people that's their catch-all explanation for everything. What you're seeing is just
pareidolia. It can't be real, yeah.
It's just a catchphrase people use if they don't understand something. You're just saying, oh, you're just seeing dust particles on your lens or lens flare. It's all part of the same thing. And honestly, those things do exist. I've seen a lot of pictures where there's pareidolia, but basically it is where you see a pattern and it kind of looks like a face or kind of looks like something, but usually it's not very detailed.
Yeah.
It's just that something kind of resembles two eyes, nose, and a mouth.
And so your brain tries to make something out of it.
It tries to make something out of it. So I fully understand that. However, when you take a picture and you're looking, as I did on the stump, zooming in, I could see faint differences in colors. And I was looking, I said, oh my goodness, I'm seeing a head. The arm was very detailed, the hand, in the hat.
And his hand open, yeah.
I couldn't believe it, but the size was, I talked about stories about the 3-foot-tall little people. There's some reports of that back east in the United States. And, of course, the ones I'm going to be talking about on future episodes are the 3 to 6 inch variety that live here in the Northwest. But these guys were
microscopic.
I know, they were just, there's a saying that says, so above, so below. So it's just like everything's a fractal. So we're 6 foot tall generally. There's giants, but then there's small. And they probably go right down to micro.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I've seen several instances of that. So it's maybe they don't exactly exist in their dimension totally, but they blend in a little bit. But what I saw was astonishing. I actually saw, size-wise, I don't know, even smaller than an inch.
Yeah, how do you measure something that little?
Maybe an 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch.
I had never thought of that little. I wasn't thinking little enough when I thought little people.
No, and
I was amazed.
Top of that stump looked like garden areas.
Yeah, to them it's like a little forest, a garden. Yeah, it was amazing.
It was very lush and everything, more so than I've seen a stump. And of course, what was the other kind of unusual thing in that area was there was no tree growth around it, but it was like this mossy, spongy like stuff on the ground
back behind it. Yeah.
Almost as if that the sponginess was something's very hollow underneath there. It could have been a full, who knows, could have been a full civilization down there or a village or whatever. We don't know. But we definitely made a point to come back there.
Which we did.
we brought our chairs, remember?
Yeah, well, you said we're going to have kind of an evening night sit type situation.
So I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about that.
Sure. Yeah, well, we got there and we sat our little chairs in front of this, stump in this area there, and it's so cool, just the energy that I feel out there. It's one of my favorite places up there.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I'm thinking, I'm feeling something warm on my back. It looks like I'm getting a massage, and I'm like, Sam, are you feeling anything warm on your back? And you're like, yeah. So it was like we're getting back massages. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool.
But the crazy part about that was, it was like, first of all, I had the sensation of no fear.
Oh yeah, there was
I felt like I was in a very, very, very secure place.
Very secure, very peaceful, very welcoming, yeah.
What was funny about the massaging, though, was we're leaning against our gravity chairs,
mm-hmm.
and the massaging seemed to be taking place right on our backs, but not through the gravity.
Yeah, yeah.
As if it's touching the skin, but it's just the warmth was going up and down
mm-hmm.
our backs like that. And it was, I just
it was really
sat
cool.
there, and my mind just, whatever anxiety I had was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Because you mentioned it, and then I felt the same thing. So, and then something else happened too. Talk about what you were seeing.
Well, I could see, like, certain places, a type of light, and I was like, oh wow, this is cool. And so I put my hands up, and my hands were lit up, but it wasn't an outside source. It looked like it was coming from the inside of my hands.
Mm-hmm.
They were lit up from the inside out. And I was like, wow, I felt like a little kid. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't trying to figure out what it was. I was just enjoying it. I was like, oh, my hands are lighting up. Oh, this is cool. And then I'd move my hands back and forth, and there was like a little comet trail of light.
Kind of a swirl of light going back,
behind from wherever I was moving. And I was like, wow, this is just, I was amazed. But like I said, I felt like a little kid, like I was playing in it. It was, I was just...
And you saw, when I had my hands up, you saw sparkles
mm-hmm.
from them.
You were sparkling, and even it was either that day or another day close to this, and you were walking, looking off past where the stump is, off to the right, and you're walking else, and I told you to stop, but not turn around. I told you to stop, but don't turn around, because all around your head and your shoulders, almost down to like where your elbows are, you were sparkling. There were sparkles all around you, very, very distinct, bright sparkles.
Right.
And you weren't wearing anything reflective. There was nothing around there to reflect. There was no, different light in that area. And I was like, Sam, you're sparkling.
I wish
cool.
I feel like a blind person, with not having the ability sometimes to see that, because that's why I like having you around, because you're my eyes. You're seeing the things that I can't see. But I totally know everything is very real that you're seeing. I have some other abilities that I use sometimes in
mm-hmm.
the psychic sense too, and so we make a good team when we go out, because we both seem to complement each other, on
confirm things. One person will be scared to say something because it's like, oh, they're going to think I'm nuts, but then the other person.
I think we're going to hold that one. There's something very special that you told about something about myself that
that'd be a whole nother show. Yeah.
Yep. We're going to kind of keep. We're going to have to let the audience keep that one in suspense a little bit. We're going to have you back on for that and go into a whole different range of things. Okay?
Yeah, that's a whole little different area.
And I'm thinking of a couple experiences that will fit very nicely with that whole show and everything. So we'll have you back on for that part. We're getting close to the last 15 minutes of our interview.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about some paranormal stuff. Okay. One of the things we were doing the previous summer was going up to this one town of Carbonado,
mm-hmm.
and we would stop by the Carbonado Cemetery.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And the Carbonado Cemetery was, this is a very, very, very old place from the early 1800s, from the time that Washington State was being settled.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Lewis and Clark, it was the early 1800s by the time they got up here, and then it's one of the first few places that was being settled. Matter of fact, the town right below that, Wilkerson, was destined to be the state capital of Washington at one time. And now it's more of They had industry and all sorts of things up that way, but now it's more of a small
It's a little small,
bedroom.
yeah.
But there are some
Little place.
businesses there. I really like it. We stop there every so often.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the cemetery. A lot of coal mining took place up there. A lot of people died suddenly. Yeah, I mean, it was just like there was a memorial up there talking about different
Big
years.
accident, yeah.
Like over a 30-year period, I think, or 20-year period, there was like an accident and like 19 people would die. And then 31 people would die from cave-ins or
Yeah, there was
explosions
a lot.
and things like that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of traumatic death that took place in that area. So we'd gone there, and you had some psychic.
Oh yeah, we had been. You've
there.
been giving me just kind of a tour of the area still and stuff, and we had gone by other cemeteries, and I never, felt anything specific energy-wise. This one, I was just like, oh, it felt like there was a lot of energy calling out. We're here, we're here, we're here, we're here. And so we stopped at that one, and the minute I started walking around, it was just, I could feel all the different, the different energies. And it was just...
From the entities, from the people, or from the spirits?
From the different spirits there. And then I figured out later that, well, when we did find the memorial, I didn't know that memorial stone was there. And so that helped me make sense of what I was feeling, all the different people that had died at one time. And then when I kind of walked back a little bit between these two trees,
right,
and went from standing there, it was like I could sense the sadness. I don't know if it was like the biggest amount of people that had died at once, or there was a big, funeral. I was feeling the sadness of the families of the people that had died, and it was almost overwhelming. I just sat there and bawled. That's all I could do.
In the cemetery. You also felt that when you also actually felt the sadness too when we went to Black Diamond, the museum, and we were downstairs.
Yes, I could feel it there.
Something about the objects associated with these people's lives, and you could feel the sadness.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like when we were talking about that people, the spirits were still clinging on to the familiarity of their previous life,
mm-hmm.
and wouldn't let go, and so they were hanging on to certain objects. They were very connected to certain objects that were down there, and you were feeling that. But what I'd like to talk about, though, is this one incident where, and I seen you walking around the cemetery, and you were holding your hand. I could tell that you were sensing these folks and everything,
mm-hmm.
and I was trying to feel the stone. I was actually feeling some energies myself, mm-hmm. just touching the stones. And when I touched the stones, I could actually feel some of the energy.
I wanted them to feel like they were acknowledged.
Right.
But yes, I can feel you. I feel, that you're here. I feel
and I think
what happened.
I was feeling what you were just saying, the acknowledgement. I was feeling that, I was feeling the kind of, how do I express this? Like they're going, oh, thank goodness, someone knows we're here. Like the desperation of that.
Yeah, they feel like they've been forgotten over the years.
like they've been there for years and years and years, and they have been. If they haven't left this earth plane to go where they're supposed to go, out of fear or their belief systems kept them there.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about a lonely existence where nobody, the living, doesn't acknowledge that nothing's there, and
mm-hmm.
you come along and then
and then it's not like I go to cemeteries looking for ghosts, or that's not my. I'm not a ghost chaser.
We're not ghost hunters or anything like that.
I'm not anything like that. I just happened to feel it, and I was like, oh, we need to stop here,
right.
type of a thing, and it was just so I just kind of went with it.
Well, one incident that I think was really, I want to get into this, but that's why I brought the subject up.
When we were driving?
Yes, and I want to talk about that. We got in your car
mm-hmm.
to drive back down from the cemetery, drive down the hill to the town of Wilkinson, and there was a favorite little pizza place we like going to,
mm-hmm.
So we get in the car, and we start driving down, and then tell me what...
I'm driving, and it felt like there was somebody in the back seat. And it didn't scare me, because I was like, okay, it's not anybody bad. But they were telling me to ask you, who's Paul? And at first I'm like, I'm not going to say that, I don't know. And finally I was like, no, ask her who Paul is. And so I finally was like, Samantha, I'm supposed to ask you, who's Paul?
Because you said someone's sitting in the back seat asking who Paul is.
I'm supposed to ask you who Paul is, and you're like, and so we're trying to rack our brains who Paul could be, and
right.
But it was a very definite, ask her who Paul is.
Well, and I was racking my mind a little bit because, I'm thinking, I don't have any, well, I knew of a Paul in Greenwater. There's actually a couple of Pauls there, and in my employment, or at least at the place I worked with, I knew a good friend, Paul, at that as well. And, no, I was racking my mind. I didn't know, Yeah,
I didn't know if they're talking about a Paul that has passed on, a Paul that something happened to. I didn't get any kind of information.
Never could figure that out.
Ask her who Paul is.
Right. So we got to Warvison. We parked the car in the parking area, and still not knowing who Paul is exactly. So we sit down. I'm going to go ahead and fill part of the story in because it's just unbelievable how this happened. Is we sat down at the booth. And the way it's set up, there's three or four booths in the front, the building. And past there's like a bar that people can sit, a long bar that someone can sit and eat there too, as well, with stools and everything. So I said, I'll be right back. I had to go to the restroom. So I make my way through there, and there's a bunch of people that are on the bar. So I took care of business, and I came back. But unbeknownst to me, one of the individuals at the bar recognized me. So I sat back down, and we were talking, and all of a sudden this guy comes up to us. And I'm looking at him. He kind of looks familiar, but I can't place him. He says, "Hey, how you doing, Sam?" I said, "Oh, great. And I said, we're talking just for a short bit, and I'm feeling kind of bad because I can't remember who this guy is." And
they obviously know who you are.
And then he's going so we started talking about some clues about who this guy was, and he said, "Oh yeah, Debbie's doing fine." And I'm thinking, Debbie Page. Well, I know Debbie Page. Yeah, she's a musician. I have her CD, and one of the videos they did a long time ago, I incorporated one of her songs in that, like years and years ago, almost a decade ago. So he says, "Yeah, I'm Paul." Can you believe that?
Oh yeah, my insides lit up.
My God!
Oh, there's Paul.
I had the hair stand on end. I had the goosebumps. I had everything else happening. It says, "Here's the Paul," and he said, "Yeah, oh yeah, Paul." I forgot the
last name now.
My mind's just going to seed as I get older. But that's who the Paul had to be.
Yeah.
We talked for a few minutes. He said, "Well, it's good to see you again. We'll stay in touch." And then he took off. But he says, "Wow, how did the spirit knew already? It's almost like they could look in the future and see where we're going to hang out and see this guy." And
they were definitely getting my attention to let you know.
And it's like they were letting you know that was almost like a confirmation proof that you actually had a spirit talking to you.
Yeah. I've known things off and on that before they happen. Whether it's a week before is the closest, and then there's another incident that's been like since the 90s that I didn't realize what it was until the last couple of years. But yeah,
you had an incident?
It's knowing what I was doing and then
the premonition.
Yeah.
Don't you just kind of hate that? You just all of a sudden you say, "Well, you better not go to the store today. Yeah, you better not go over here today, or you better not do this today." That says something might happen. It's terrible. Well, not that it may or may not happen, but
at the time it's a little bit frustrating because you don't have all the answers, but then later when something comes up or something happens, the pieces all fit together, and you're just like, "Oh wow."
I would want to know the future all the time and says, "Surprise me." Don't tell me ahead of time what's going to happen, because I'm a big believer in free will and going different directions in our life. Now some of those directions might have consequences. That if I get in my car and go like 100 miles an hour down a 2-lane road, and I decide to cross the double yellow line and try to pass a car when another one's not that far away,
there's consequences.
And you may not be along for very long, and you might take a few people with you too. Talk about some major karma you're going to bring on your life if you start doing stuff like that.
Sometimes I think it is protection things.
Yep.
Sometimes I think it is just to get our attention, that there's something specific about it. And sometimes I think it's a confirmation for yourself
Right.
For them to say, you're not crazy.
When you come back on the show again, we're going to talk about confirmations. I think there's a whole series of things that...
Oh, yeah, just between you and me, we've had a lot.
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
it's like you can't make this stuff up.
I should call it the Sam and Anita show, basically, because we have a lot of experiences we shared, and it's going to take some time to get through those. What I'm trying to do with Greenwater Nightz initially is to kind of go through all our circle of friends and all the experiences, trying to make sense of everything that's been going on. You're a big part of the picture, and of course, the first episode, featured Tom Cantrell, very good friend of all of ours, of you, me, and
he's a very
Barb,
wise person. Yeah, he's had lots of experiences.
Great experiences with him. And then, of course, our Tom's been a great friend. I love sitting out with him.
You love Tom.
Yeah, and that was a great interview we had with him last week. As each episode goes by, I'm going to try to piece together the personal commentary about how these different interviews tie together, putting together the puzzles to a giant picture. I mean, putting together... Sorry, I get twisted in my words here.
I'm
going to get better with this as time goes by, because being a talk show host is... If you're not used to doing it, it takes a little while to get your words.
It's different than being interviewed, yeah.
Right. The pieces to the puzzle is what I was referring to. Putting them together to get the picture of what's going on. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that happen when I get frustrated when I see these Bigfoot conferences. We've been a few of them. Then we have a UFO conference, so there's those folks, with UFOs. And then you have something in paranormal, like ghost hunters and things. But guess what? They don't get together and compare notes.
They're all tied together.
They are all tied together. I don't look at ghosts as a spiritual thing. Everything's scientific. I just view people in that realm as a different dimension, and kind of has an overlap with ours at times.
And we might look like a ghost to them.
When I wrote my book, I try not to plug my stuff on the show because I don't want to come off like any of that. But when I did write my first book, The Sasquatch Journey Through the Veil, the title of that book is about that veil. And the same veil that's the veil that opens up. It's when we actually think like children again. And then that opens the door for us to see these other things. But
amazing,
I think in certain places like the field that we go up to, or the fortress area, that those areas sometimes have thinning veils, I think, of energy.
Yeah, it seems to be a certain time, which I never saw that way, but certain times of the year seem to be a lot thinner. I've seen, that's going to be a whole other story too, things I've seen that
I know, and I saw that correlation greater in certain time periods. But guess what, Anita? We're totally out of time.
Oh, gosh, another story.
We had so much fun with this interview. We're going to have to do this again, and we're going to line you up in the next few weeks or so. Okay?
This is cool to be able to share stuff.
Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, great. This is Sam Ritchie, and this concludes another edition of Greenwater Nightz. And we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to everyone. So you all take care, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Greenwater Nightz. Take care.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.